So we're fucked.
I think we have an ability. That's why I think this election is so important, not just for everything we've talked about to this point, but in terms of national security and defense, which is sort of my wheelhouse. We have an opportunity to come in and reprioritize all the things that you and I have just been talking about so that the American people are safeguarded, because they've been neglected for too long, because these are not been priorities of the current administration and some of the previous administrations.
How likely is that method of attack, do you think, from Russia, Iran, Korea, China?
Something's going to happen.
One of the tragic things about life is that it ends. How often do you think about your death? Are you afraid of it?
I have a friend who's very, very successful, and he's in his 80s, mid 80s, and he asked me that exact same question. I turned it around. I said, well, what about you? He said, I think about it every minute of every day. And then a week later, he called me to tell me something, and he starts off the conversation by going, tick tock, tick tock.
Yeah.
This is a dark person, in a sense, but it is what it is. I mean, if you're religious, you have, I think, a better feeling toward it. You're supposed to go to heaven, ideally not hell, but you're supposed to go to heaven if you're good. I think our country's missing a lot of religion. I think it really was a much better place with religion. It was almost a guide, to a certain extent. It was a guide. You want to be good to people. Without religion, there are no guardrails. I'd love to see us get back to religion, more religion in this country.
I have a very simple message for my Democrat friends, my independent friends, those who may not be sure about who they're voting for in this election. Dick Cheney has just made the choice very clear. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for Dick Cheney, the architect of everything that has gone wrong in the Middle East for the last few decades. If you listen to the New York Times or some of the other mainstream media, they're saying, don't expect much from Kamala Harris in the way of policies and details and plans, and we're not going to know much about what kind of president she's going to be because she doesn't have much time. They're conveniently ignoring the fact that she's been there working in the White House the last 3.5 years alongside Joe Biden. She's been the last one in the room, according to her, as these big decisions are being made. Her response to the Dick Cheney announcement today was that she was honored to have his endorsement.
What are you drinking?
Coke.
Got to stay hydrated.
Exactly.
All right, so you're voting for Donald Trump.
Yes,
How come?
because he's the best for the country. Because he's the best for the
Look at
country.
this weird guy.
Yeah,
He's never
yeah.
lifted a weight in his life.
They call us weird.
Are you really going to hit me? Are you really going to hit me? You want to go to jail for assault? You look like
What's wrong with the Democrats?
you look like Thomas Crooks, little soy boy.
Hey, Harris 2024? You voting for Harris? Why? Yeah. She's a beautiful person? I think she'll make America beautiful. Can you name one policy that she wants to do? Oh, you can't. That figures.
Join Esperanza Spalding for holiday favorite Arlen Kelly and Jennifer are going to join forces for holiday favorite.
It's not something that I want to do. I have a really good life, and I had a great family that loved me. I still have a nuclear family that loves me. And I have a big, big family now, too. But I didn't feel like I had a choice. I felt like I have to do this the same reason people left their homes in 1776 to do something for an idea, and I want to keep that idea for my kids.
If Churchill is a hero, how come there are British girls begging for drugs on the street of London? and the place is, it's just London is not majority English now. Like, what?
Well, the people who formulated the version of history that considers Churchill a hero, they like London the way it is now.
What was the motive?
Well, Churchill's got a long and complicated history. I mean, he's somebody who
that was the wryest smile I think I've ever seen.
The hard reality in American politics today is the people we elect to run the government, they're not even the ones actually running the government. It's the puppet masters underneath and around them, unelected bureaucrats and the managerial class. And so in some ways, I do think it's to give Kamala Harris too much credit when we say she's a communist or a socialist. That gives her too much credit because I don't particularly think that she has an ideology at all. She's another cog in the system. We're not running against a candidate. We are running against a machine. And when Donald Trump said in 2016 he wanted to go in and drain the swamp, what it means is we want to go in and dismantle that machine. So we have self-governance again in this country. Biden's cognitive deficits, Kamala's policy deficits, those are not a bug. Those are a feature for the people who actually manage them. That's the sad state of American democracy today, Jesse, and I think the more we see that, the more likely we are to succeed.
First stage was isolation. Disable their communication and transportation. Make the target as deaf, dumb, and paralyzed as possible, setting them up for the second stage. Synchronized chaos. Terrorize them with covert attacks and misinformation. Overwhelming their defense capabilities, leaving their weapon systems vulnerable to extremists in their own military. Without a clear enemy or motive, people would start turning on each other. Done successfully, the third stage would happen on its own.
What I've heard tonight, Jesse, is that most of the agents who were there at that rally in Butler were not Secret Service agents. They were, in fact, Homeland Security agents. And get this, most of those Homeland Security agents, the only training that they received was an online webinar, a 2-hour online webinar. And I'm told that about half the time, the sound to the webinar didn't even work. So think about this. The President of the United States, former President of the United States, Donald Trump, is sent out on stage. Most of the people there aren't trained. They're not qualified. They only got a webinar training, and even that didn't work. It is absolutely outrageous. I'm told that actually agents, Homeland Security agents, were pulled off of child exploitation cases, child endangerment cases, the stuff they normally do. They don't normally do protective detail work at all. They were pulled off those cases, said, here, you're going to go guard the former president of the United States. Watch this webinar. Oops, it doesn't really work. Oh, that's all right. Go out into the field anyway. Jesse, this is a nightmare, and we still have no answers. The only reason we know this stuff is because of whistleblowers. It's outrageous.
That is. So what else are you going to do to fix this problem with inflation?
All right, thank you. Well, let's start with this. Prices have gone up.
folks. We're ready.
All right, we're going in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Only thing that I can say about President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, he is the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever.
What does it mean to belong? Is it to be part of a group? To feel connected and safe? To contribute to something bigger than you? Over 30 million refugees have been forced to leave their homes and start over in places that can feel strange and isolating. Tent believes that businesses are critical to refugees finding economic security, stability, and a sense of community. This isn't about donations. This is about companies stepping up, hiring, training, or mentoring refugees in a way that transforms their lives. It's about strengthening your workforce through diversity, building trust in your brand, and transforming the way you do business. This work changes lives. This is Tent.
We continue to call on Congress to do something. We need universal background checks. We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, require safe storage of firearms, invest in violence prevention programs, and pass a national red flag law. Enough is enough. And I cannot say this enough, which is enough is enough. We cannot allow this to happen in our communities.
It is a false choice to say you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and I know we need reasonable gun safety laws in our country.
There are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program. It's got to be smart. We got to do it the right way.
And then also, again, what we need to do about demilitarizing our schools and taking police officers out of schools. We need to deal with the reality and speak the truth about the inequities around school discipline.
We talked about those lids. So here's what I said to her. So you know how those lids are, because this is, well, I'm just going to speak, okay? So this is it. So you know how those lids on those Starbucks cups, they're white, right? And so if you wear lipstick, they get all over the lid. And so then I find myself in meetings if I'm the only woman, and that's kind of, and so I keep taking the lid off and having my cup out so that I don't have that big lipstick mark on the lid. So I said, can we do something about the color of the lid? So that was that conversation.
I can't emphasize this enough. There are not enough people. And I think one of the biggest risks to civilization is the low birth rate and the rapidly declining birth rate. And yet so many people, including smart people, think that there are too many people in the world and think that the population is growing out of control. It's completely the opposite. Please look at the numbers. If people don't have more children, civilization is going to crumble. Mark my words.
Here's what happens. People find out that this is the truth, but they know that if they go down this path, they're going to get fired and their life's going to suck.
It is hard. It's a hard decision. You know, I was pretty comfortable, and I still had to be like, do I want to talk about this? Do I want to meet up with you? So I understand, but people got to stop being cowards too, or our country's not going to be saved.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, people don't become convinced it isn't true. They become convinced that it's not worth it.
Yeah, most people don't think that's true. They're more like, oh, you might get killed. You might get that.
Yeah, they say, well, and then that's how they convince themselves. They see, because they kind of stare into the abyss, and they say, if I take the plunge, it's over for me. And then it's very easy for them to convince themselves, oh, well, I'm not going to ruin my career talking about this. I have a life. And it's like, okay, but you're going to lie. Like, you're lying for money. Like, you know it's false. You're kind of coping yourself and deluding yourself because it would be inconvenient. So now you're a paid liar. And, you know, I really sincerely believe you should just go and do something else. If you don't have the integrity to tell the truth, you know, go sell hot dogs.
100% agree.
Kamala Harris wants to give the American dream to people who shouldn't even be here. Donald J. Trump wants to protect the American dream for people who ought to be here, who deserve to be here, and who have fought for this country their whole lives.
In my second term, we will roll back every Biden attack on the Second Amendment. The attacks are fast and furious, starting the minute that Crooked Joe shuffles his way out of the White House.
And will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off of hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community.
My investments, through my investments, the most significant climate change law ever, and by the way, it is a $369 billion bill. It's called the, we should have named it what it was, but at any rate.
I don't like this. I don't like to admit this. I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. And we have got to bolster security at our schools.
Kamala.
Kamala.
Why Kamala?
Just because of policies. She's more vocal on her policies.
Could you name 3 of her policies for me?
Well, I mean...
Got this, man.
No, you good, you're good. Sorry, it just... The economy caught me off guard.
No, yeah, they always get caught off guard. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, my mind starts to race once I start talking about politics.
Hey, I understand
like that. Y'all have a good day.
Yes, sir.
Venezuela, by the way, has the lowest murder rate ever right now. What does that tell you?
Yeah, all the murderers are gone.
They're here.
Yeah. So is it true that they're emptying prisons? I mean, is this not Cuba all over again?
This is not a hearsay. There was a memo by DHS last year admitting that, in fact, they knew that Venezuela's government was emptying their prison and rehabilitation centers or drug centers, releasing them on purpose because they knew with instructions to make, if you were going to get out, you're going to make your way to the U.S. That is not, we're not making that up. That's true. It was reported on, and DHS admitted that was happening. And in fact, it has. El Tren de Aragua is heavily present in our country now.
Okay, so you're telling me that DHS has acknowledged that Venezuela, for example, is emptying their prisons and their rehabilitation centers with the understanding you get out if you leave here and go to the United States?
Yes.
And DHS has in writing said, we know that's happening. We know they're coming here. We're processing them in and have no idea where they are.
Correct.
How many people are we talking about?
Millions. In just Venezuela alone.
We're talking about in the last 2 or 3 years, we've had estimated how many people have come across the border.
My estimation, the official number, I think, is about 10 million.
Yeah, it's about 10, 11 million. Yeah, that's the official.
But my personal opinion, I think we're about 15 to 18 million.
And sing by the Kansas City Boys Choir and the Kansas City Girls Choir.
Every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought.
It's the Middle East, and stuff happens in the Middle East. You know it. You've covered it for years. But you cannot, I don't think you can make a case that the world would be better off today if Saddam Hussein were still in power.
So no regrets about Iraq?
I think we made exactly the right decisions.
But my predecessor doesn't get it. He refused to visit an American cemetery in France that I was just near because, according to his own chief of staff, a 4-star Marine general, Trump said those servicemen buried there are suckers and losers. My son died because of a year in Iraq. I'm just happy, and I mean this in front of my heart. I'm glad I wasn't there. I think I would have done something. No, I think you would have too. They're heroes. He's the sucker. He's the loser, the way he talks.
I've known Bobby Kennedy for a while, not as long as you, of course, but I believe Bobby Kennedy to be a very decent and beautiful and kind man. And I also note that since he has joined the campaign, he is brought to the forefront, and I'm, of course, not claiming to be an expert in your politics, but I noted that he spoke about free speech and the integrity of that, ending war, and children's health. From which I can only conclude he must have become some sort of right-wing fascist.
I'm a Republican.
You're a Republican? And you're going the other way?
Yes.
Why?
Because she behaves more like a human.
You really want Trump to lose this election, right? No, you don't, really?
No,
Wouldn't
there is
it
a
be
theory
easier to get rid of him?
Look,
because if he lost another election, that would be 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024. I would think, and I've certainly been the last one to say Trump's over now. Lots of people do. I was like, no, no, no. But I think this would be it for him. I think he'd still be, he's not like Joe Biden. He's not going to go peacefully and out to pasture. But Republicans will have had enough of Trump, not of Trumpism, but of Trump. And you'd be done with all that chaos.
You can't be certain of that, Bill. The one thing that's certain, if he loses, Kamala Harris will be president of the United States. And I wholly oppose almost every single one of her positions. I think she's a vacuous opportunist. I totally reject the idea that in the space of 48 hours, she went from a subpar vice president, everyone recognized as such, all of a sudden to the second coming of Barack Obama. It is preposterous.
Think about this. When I was a kid growing up in Nebraska, being gay was illegal. Still technically illegal.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace, as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
We get up there and we just do this big bro bear hug. And I cannot tell you how many texts I got from my actual friends and actual family members like, you never hugged me like that. What's going on? You literally just met this guy.
Did you hit him on the back?
Walls pilled.
Did you hit him on the back to preserve your heteronormativity? Did you give him the back pat?
No, if you see the video, we just did this full on. And I think, he was like this, I was like this, and then it was just this bro hug. And I heard from a lot of actual friends.
The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are here.
I know the other team doesn't think there's any such thing as global warming. Well, I like to put the other nominee for president, the former president, I like to put him in the middle of Arizona for a while.
What's the third stage? A coup d'etat. Civil war.